Reading in bed.
Have you ever thought about what Santa Claus would be like as a zombie? Or maybe you've wondered how he would cope with climate change, Brexit, or any number of issues facing the UK and beyond. Probably not, but if you're now wondering, you can buy The 12 Deaths of Father Christmas by Amanda Steele. It's a collection of flash fiction stories with accompanying images in which Santa dies in different ways. There's a political slant to many of the pieces and added sarcasm. This is not for children.
Ho, 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 ho. Merry Christmas!
Reading in bed.
Right, Amanda, what are we doing today?
Reading in bed.
Yeah, now this is getting quite interesting now, because what episode number are we up to?
35.
Yeah, now, of course, I'm Andy N, and you are?
Amanda Steele.
Yeah, it's been quite a productive month this month, really, Amanda, isn't it? Reading and bits and pieces wise, because, like, people will be interested in knowing that we're doing, how many books we're doing this month, Amanda?
Well, I've got 3, and I'm assuming you've got 3.
I've got 3 as well. So, and then what's also interesting, there's been plenty up on the news front for both of us, first of all. Ladies first, because I do have news myself this month.
Yeah, so I was a finalist in the Offer Elite Awards 2020 in the thriller category. And even though I wasn't picked as the ultimate winner, I was just glad to be a finalist because they had thousands of entries.
Yeah, you did really well with that. Was that the one where you were up quite late one night, weren't you, on the award ceremony?
I was up until 1:30 in the morning in the award ceremony, and I knew from the categories, because there were 16 different categories and they picked an ultimate winner from each one. I was in the 15th, so I knew I'd be up until almost the end. So I just stayed and watched the whole thing because I'd been up that long.
Oh yeah, you get to that stage, makes sense. Good, well done, well done. Now, you've got other news, haven't you, as well? Or should I give my news next?
Yeah, you give your news first.
Okay, I've had 4 Halloween poems go up yesterday in a magazine called Sage Cigarettes, and 4 Mile Ghost pieces here. The Ghost Duckingfield Cemetery, the Heaton Park Tunnel Mystery, which, do you remember that one? Our friend Hannah Kate, didn't she? She played that one. She contacted me over that. So you've got the Ghost of Mayfield Station, where Mayfield Station is, if you ever know central Manchester, Piccadilly train station, there's another station next door to it. Been active for years now, called Mayfield Station, which is rumoured to be haunted. And then my favourite out of the forum is, according to the sermon of Reverend Collier. Now, Reverend Collier is a ghost that haunts. I've encountered this one personally, where in a bar in Manchester, and Albert Hall's, which is a gig venue, at one point it was took over to be from a full bar called Brannigan's, which is, I think, still in part existence, but he was reputedly not very happy the way that was, because he was massively, the gentleman in question was in the early 20th century, quite a massive anti-drinking, that sort of culture, so he was not a happy chappy. So that's the point about that as well. So that's my first bit of news, but you've got other news, Amanda, as well, haven't you?
Yeah, one of my pieces of news, well, both my pieces of news involve you in one way or another.
Oh, I'm always
the first. The first one is a writing workshop, which we're running on the 14th of November, is it, at 3:00, which is a Saturday.
Yep, it is. And that one is 3:00 itself. Contact either of us more details, but we certainly got, I know we've got spaces, Amanda, on it, haven't we? So I don't want to come along and join us.
Tickets are the price is sum of £1.67 each, or whatever it is in someone's currency if they're in the US or in a different country, because it is open worldwide, but obviously they'll have to work out the time difference.
Yeah. They'll come along and join us because it was good fun. We had a good fun a couple of weeks ago, last time we did this, and it was a good workshop. Enjoyed doing it. So, right, what's your other news, Amanda?
I'm relaunching my book, The 12 Deaths of Father Christmas, because the big C word is coming up soon, Christmas.
Yeah, and what are you doing to elaborate it, Amanda?
The following week from the workshop, which is the 21st of November, also at 3:00 GMT time, we're going to be having a little reading where I'm going to read about 3 pieces of the 12 pieces of flash fiction that are in the book. And I'm also going to be doing a little Q&A, and people can pay £1.67 for tickets for that. And they'll also get a free PDF of the book after the event.
Yeah, should be good fun, definitely. So I've got the book. It's great fun, really. It's very Amanda. That's the best way to put it to you, in tone, definitely. So we've also done a trailer for this, Amanda, as well, haven't we, for the book itself?
Oh yeah, I enjoyed doing that. Out of the trailers for the books that we've done, that was the best one, I think.
Yeah, what we did with that was, and this is worth just a bit of tech talk, really, guys, was Amanda, you read out the blurb, didn't you? You wrote a blurb for it.
I kind of altered the blurb a little bit just to sort of suit the advert rather than just reading the blurb out.
Yeah, and what did I do then for you? I'll let you tell people.
You added the jingle bells and the Santa Claus, which I had in mind, but you went and found them, didn't you? And some music in the background as well, you added to it. And
yeah, the music was very soft jingle bells, which is a copyright-free website. And then the Santa Claus thing came again, really. And Amanda wants that putting at the end of the book going, ho, ho, ho. So
yeah.
I made him say,
well, people will probably have heard it because it can go at the beginning of this episode, can't it?
Yeah, of course it should. Well, you would have heard it.
Because they make excellent Christmas presents, so you should definitely buy that for someone you love. Okay.
Yeah, definitely stocking fillers, that's for sure, right? So no, it's really good fun. And it's like the Santa Claus at the end of it. Amanda wanted him kind of look a bit evil, so I've got a big echo on it. And they went, ho, 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 like that when you've heard it. So that was good fun doing.
Yeah.
Now, my last bit of news is I've got 2 albums out. One, I think it's this one next month, on the Turbo Ocean and the Bottle. And both on Off Records in Holland. And the first one's called Re-Examining the Solar System. I think that's out in November. And that's where I've done a short ambient piece for all 8 of the planets in our solar system. And do you remember, Amanda, when I was doing this album and the label wanted it earlier in the year, didn't they? Do you remember them asking me about that because of our writing? They asked me, could I try doing a poem on top of it, couldn't I?
Yeah.
So what I did was, I did one on the planet Neptune. And what did you do yours on, Amanda?
Venus.
Yeah, and originally they were just bonus tracks at the end of the album, but they had the record company actually liked it that much. He asked me, did we know any more poets that would do tracks for us? And we did. We've got 6 more people basically. So, and I'm not going to go into details of who they all are. You have to check it out. But certainly, one of them is a regular of our Night to Speak Easy, Reggie, isn't he?
Yeah.
And that was quite a symbolic time we did that for us. At the time, I only just started becoming friends with him, and Amanda hadn't really met him. And I did that one on the night in Bristol lockdown. So we sat outside this bar, we were doing Saturn, is it you? And so what happened then was the record label actually loved them that much, those 2 pieces, and we did 6 more that weren't connected to the solar system out of that space with 6 other writers. We've got an additional 8-track album coming out. I think it's beginning in December, called Revocalizing the Solar System. And that's really, really good fun. So they're both coming out, so more details to follow. Right, Amanda, should we head on to books?
Yeah.
Now, as we agreed before, we've got 6 books this month. We've got 3 each, so I'm just going to now load up my document and with the details on. Now, I'm going to start off with, considering what I've got coming up here, this is the lightest book I've read this month, Amanda.
Yeah, I've heard about what's coming up later.
Yeah,
I think we'll have to put some sort of warning or something in the show notes.
Yeah, there's all kinds of warnings because they're pretty full-on books we're doing here. And this one's just bloody, right? But this one's by an American writer from Texas called M.D. Massey. And the book is called Blood Scent. And it's book 1. It's book 0.5 on the Colin McCool series. So what do you want me to tell you?
The blurb.
Okay, right. This was 2-part blurb actually, but I'll read it all out to you. Okay, I don't mind too much. Okay. After the loss of his girlfriend Jessie, druid-trained hunter Colin McCool sworn off monster hunting for good. Now rogue vampire is killing the weak and defenceless in his city, and no one else seemed to care enough to stop him. To end the slaughter, Colin agreed to take up his sword one last time. will this one final job be the death? That's the top part, okay? And it's got a Colin's life has finally regained some semblance of normality after the death of his girlfriend Jessie. He no longer hunts supernatural creatures. He has a job working in his uncle's salvage yard that he enjoys. He's even planned to start college in the fall. And he lives inside 6 acres of scrap iron, steel, and magical walls to keep the fairy and other denizens of Austin's paranormal underworld far, far away from him, which is just like how he likes it. So when he runs across a rogue vampire he's on the hunt, his first instinct is to report it to the local convent leader and mind his own business. But Colin can't just stand aside and watch as innocent people are slaughtered. That's why he'll take up his sword one last time, one final job. But with witches, doppelgangers, and demon gods involved, this gig is turned into a lot more complicated and dangerous than he expected. Hopefully, this one last job won't truly become his last.
Okay. It sounds like someone's been watching a lot of Supernatural before they've written this book.
It's got. Have you ever read any of the Dresden Files?
I've heard of them, but I've never read them.
Yeah, my brother was there. I've just ordered 2 of them for my brother for Christmas, actually. And he knows about that. But it's meant to be quite close to that, apparently, in places. And this is should I go straight into the strengths?
Yeah.
I think he's done quite a clip. This part, what he's done is it's a 120-page novella. And it definitely has a feel to Harry Dresden of the Dresden Files. And it seems like there's 5 to 4 novels following on from this. So I think he's done this as like a lead-in to the series. And I got this on nothing I did. I came up with a trailer on Amazon on Facebook. And I thought, yeah, I'll give it a go. So, and it starts off it gets off to a good start, definitely, when the main character's at rock bottom. So like it's where obviously was scenes that gone on before that. They destroyed him basically, and he by chance encounters a rogue deadly vampire in the bar. You like the camera? Yeah. Yeah. And it starts off there where I'm going to give a load of spoiler away here, but he ends up
Spoiler alert.
Yeah. And he ends up confronting the vampire and saving the victim from it. And then things get deadly. Where basically, I'm coming to the weakness. The weakness is called part of the fault of this bit, but he ends up reporting it to Luther, who's the vampire leader in the area, who doesn't want to get involved in it. Nobody else will get involved in it. And then bodies start stacking up. So he goes after the vampire.
Okay. So was there any bad points to the book?
There's a bit more I want to touch on about the strengths, if you don't mind, do you?
Okay, yeah.
You know why I like the Anita Blake series, don't you, by Lorraine K. Hamilton, don't you?
Yeah.
Well, it kind of reminded me of that in a little bit of way, man. This kind of worked as well. Because that's got a large member ensemble cast. And I didn't think the cast was as big or as good in this book. But I thought it was a steady start rather than a really good start, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I thought the dialogue was fairly good in the book. And pacing was good, so it seemed to move along. You make it short, sharp read.
Okay.
And what else do you want to know?
Any more good points before you move on to the bad stuff?
Not really,
no.
There's a couple of things I want to touch on with this about the bad stuff, okay? I've got 2 things I didn't like about the book, okay? And it was very, as Supernatural will say, it's a cockfest.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes that's something you've got to have a few good, memorable female characters, haven't you, just to balance it out.
Yeah.
And the only female character in this was Maureen, who helps her get back into shape, but she's barely in the book. And I was a bit disappointed on that, because it would have given it more of a balance. And I didn't like also in it when, right at the beginning of the book, when Colin rescues the female, who's female human, from the vampire in a bar, and then she gets killed off a few pages later.
Yeah, so that was a waste of time then.
Yeah. Because the way he did it, there was a mistake this was, the way he wrote it. It left me very disconnected from the book for briefly, because it should have been, if we'd done it properly, it would have really amped the tension up. But you didn't even know who the woman was. I thought if they spent a bit of time on that woman's character development, even if they'd killed her off pretty quick, the vampire came back out and killed her. You mean it would give him more, the personal motive to go after him, basically, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
And he did do that, and it was a mistake because it was like she died off screen, basically. And I thought to myself, well, that was a huge, huge plot error. So, what do you think of that? Do you agree with what I'm saying then, plotting on that?
I don't know. It depends. I'd have to read the book to judge it myself.
Yeah, but I'm saying, like, if you'd been that, would you rather use the female character a bit more, even before you killed her off?
I suppose so, but
yeah,
there must have had a reason.
Yeah, I just didn't feel like you explored that enough, don't you? But the book itself is only 120 pages. And you're trying to do an intro like that, you can't cram everything in the can, suppose, can you? So
no, I think sometimes you've got to try and decide whether you're going to show like everything or just skip to one bit and go, right, and this happened and now we're here. And it's like, depending on which way you go, people are not going to like it either way.
Yeah, I think that's what he did with this one here, John. He just tried to keep the movement in the book going all the time. And generally it worked. I thought it worked really well in the book itself. Perhaps he shouldn't have done it. He should have a bit more attention to detail, but then it would have started becoming a 300-400 page book, and he might have had problems with that. So, which is fair enough.
Okay. So, is there anything else you want to say before you give it a score?
No, that's fine. Me, I'm okay. Jump into Atkins. How well did you think I enjoyed it? Let me ask you then.
I think it's going to be a recommendation. It's got to be 7 or over, I think.
Give me a final mark then, and I'll tell you.
7 3/4.
You're talking to Uma too much there. When the rest of the podcast with he does sort of fraction one, and Paul McNair doesn't know. I give it 7.5. Okay, it's good book. Okay, for what it was, yeah, it was a good start. I'll be honest with you, man. I think I've not probably checked out the other books in the series, but I think they were all 99 pence in the Kindle. So yeah, I'll probably give them. I'll download them for Christmas, I reckon, and have a quite nice, jolly time reading it because it's. Sometimes,
because it looks like we're going to have a traditional Iceland Christmas or whatever country it is that spends all Christmas Eve in bed reading, doesn't it?
Yeah, so I'll probably order another one to be worth very cheap. And I'm going to say is, have you ever found sometimes when you read books, it's nice sometimes just to have a pot boiler in it.
Yeah.
And it was a pot boiler, and I enjoyed it. It's certainly not the best book I've read this month, and I said, but no, for what it was, I enjoyed it. That's me said 7.5. Get it, guys. I think it's still available as a freebie if you look round. But I've seen it on Amazon at 99 pence, so it's worth it. It's worth it for a couple of hours reading, I would say. Right, okay. Well, that's the end of part 1. I don't actually know what Amanda's doing this month, which makes it even more fun. So, any hints, Amanda, for your first book for part 2?
Yeah, don't panic.
Don't panic! Don't panic! Well, that is it.
Yeah.
On me. Well, look forward to it then. See you all in a minute, guys. Say bye, Amanda.
Reading and bet.
Hi, guys.
Welcome back to Reading in Bed.
Oh, she cut me off then. I was pausing the gravitas and you jumped in as you always do.
No, you should never have big long pauses.
Not with you around, yeah, that's for sure. Now, of course, I am Andy N.
I'm Amanda Steele.
And it's time for Amanda's first book of the month. So, Amanda, tell everybody what your first book is called and who it is.
Okay, so it's called Panic, which actually has a K at the end rather than a C. And it's by Chris Selwyn James.
Okay, that being the case then, Amanda, do you want to read us the blurb?
Yeah. The epidemic starts in Oxford. New expensive drugs keep people awake for days, and strict controls are introduced to quarantine affected communities, yet people are still dying in the night. In this world, Nick peddles powerful sleep deprivation drugs, while Rosa is locked up in a government safe house because they think she is the key to finding the cure. Set in an isolated pre-apocalyptic United Kingdom, Panic tells the story about mass hysteria, profit-driven drug companies and corrupt government. It explores how we are becoming less connected to each other, losing a core part of what it is to be human.
Interesting. Now, what drew you to this book then?
So I saw somebody posted about this on Read to Discovery. I didn't sign up to do a review through them because I think they'd already published a book. But I think it was going for 99 pence, so I added it, and this must have been late last year before the pandemic happened over here. And I only just got round to reading it and quickly realised, oh, it's about a pandemic. I'm reading a book about a pandemic in the middle of a pandemic.
I was just wondering if there was this book wrote in lockdown. That's what you put this up with. It's a bit strange in itself.
No, it's slightly different. It's a pandemic, but it's a slightly different pandemic with people, when they fall asleep, they sometimes start doing things and committing suicide and stuff like that in their sleep.
Charming. Was it quite a nice, light-hearted read, this was it?
Not particularly.
No, it didn't sound like it. Now, Adam, to get back to categories, so I'm going to give us the strengths of this book, Amanda.
Okay, so even though the author doesn't really describe a lot of the characters, there's a few characters in here, but judging by the name, they're probably Chinese or Japanese, so he's got some diverse characters. But the thing is, the bad side of it is they're not even mentioned in the blurb, and he doesn't seem to make as much use of them as he could do. He just seems to, he mentions Rosa and Nick in the blurb, and I mean, they could be diverse characters, but they sound like white people.
Yeah, it sounds like they missed opportunity straight away with that. So, yeah. Also, tell us opposite, is there more you liked about this book you want to discuss, though?
I think I initially liked the idea before we actually ended up in a pandemic for real. And then it just went very funny then.
Yeah, no. I think if you'd reviewed that book beginning of the year, what do you think? You'd looked at it probably in a very different way, probably, wouldn't you?
Slightly better, but there seems to be I'm going on to the bad points already now. There seems to be a lot of the book where nothing happens for ages, or there's not much happening. And it's just like tiny little details, and you could skip that. And then all of a sudden, like, there's just big information dumps, and the bad guys just like spewing out all the information and their plans and stuff like that, which wouldn't happen in real life because it just doesn't work like that.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I don't think it was. Do you think the structure wasn't much copy in the book then, basically?
No. And
Yeah.
it was also inconsistent as well in a lot of parts. So there's one example where this character says to the other, I always believed in you. And in the next sentence she says, I wasn't sure at first, even after I saw you save that man. So it's like, well, you didn't always believe in them then, did you? Because you just said you weren't sure at first.
Yeah, and again, completely. It sounds like, you're a Hitler, aren't you, for spelling and grammar? Was that any good in it?
Yeah, that seemed okay. I suppose that's a good point.
And was it quite a long book?
I don't think it was too long. I read it on Kindle. If I had to guess, it was probably a couple of 100 pages at the most.
So how long did it take you to read that? Was it? I know we don't want to give too much spoilers away, obviously, but I know there was one book this month you had a lot of trouble reading. Was that the one?
Yeah, this was the one, yeah.
Yeah, and that's all we can say now. I won't go into more details there. So, but is there anything else you want to add about this book, Amanda, before we get into markings?
No, I just don't think he made full use of all the ideas that were introduced in the blurb.
Yeah,
it just could have been much. So you could have given the idea to somebody else who was a much better writer, and they would have made it into a better book than it was.
Yeah, see, I think the book would generate a point on everybody. Is like, when you're writing, it's great ideas don't always make great books, do they? Because the great ideas got to be executed properly. That's what you're trying to say then, basically, isn't it?
Yeah, I've had the problem myself where I've come up with ideas and then I've just struggled, like, how am I going to get this onto the page and make this go from here to here? And sometimes I've just had to abandon stories because I've just not been able to do it.
Yeah, and I think that's the problem. Sounds like we've had this book here straight away. So, yeah, get completely with that. So it's... Amanda, I've not read it, so do you want to say anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay, well, we better get on to the markings and haven't.
I'm going to give it a 6 because I can't give it a 7 because I can't recommend it. So 6 is the highest I can give it.
Yeah, so it's not like we've had Amanda in the past when she gives books 2s and 3s. So I think the point you're trying to raise there, Amanda, is this book was nearly right, wasn't it?
Yeah, it just would have been... He could have told it better, I think.
Yeah, but so it's a shame that something does happen. So, Right, guys and girls, that is the end of part 2. Who's next, Amanda?
It's you. You're next.
I'm not. Well, that's not my book's next book, right? Not your next, is it?
No, that's just me being sinister telling you that you're next. Because it was Halloween.
You're yesterday, right? I was wondering. We're doing it on Sunday, the 1st of November. Your next is not the next book, isn't it? So what do you think my next book is, Amanda?
Something happy and like a comedy. A nice light comedy.
Well, how about the mass destruction and rape and mutilation of the American Red Indians over 100 years?
I'd like to say that sounds hilarious, but it really doesn't.
It's not, right? So it's certainly not like a light-hearted yeehaw Western. It's not that.
No.
Right, guys and girls, we shall see you in 2 Shakes of the Dice. Amanda?
Bye.
Ciao.
Reading and bet.
Welcome back to Reading in Bed with me, Amanda Steele, and
Andy. Okay, my second book this month is completely different tone to what I've just done before, so this is where I'm going to put out all kinds of warnings in this next book straight away before we start, because this is not a nice book, but it's one that I think has to be discussed. This is called Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee. It's by a writer called Dee Brown.
Okay, so is there a blurb to go with that?
Yes, there is a blurb to this book. The American West, 1860 to 1890. Years of broken promises, disillusionment, war, and massacre. Beginning with the long walk of the Navajo and ending with the massacre of the Sioux at Wounded Knee. This extraordinary book tells how the American Indians lost their lands, lives, and liberty to white settlers pushing westward. Woven into an engrossing saga of cruelty, treachery, and violence, of fascinating stories of such legendary figures as Sitting Bull, Hutchins, Crazy Horse, and Geronimo. First published in 1970, Dee Brown's brutal and compelling narrative changed the way people thought about the original inhabitants of America and focused attention on a national disgrace.
Right. Okay. So, is there any? I don't want to say good points because obviously the story is telling. But is there anything that you think is good about it, for lack of a better word?
It's a fascinating book. It's difficult to read.
Yeah.
I'll come on to that in a minute. Now, you've got to look at the context here of this one, Amanda. Like, when you were growing, I'm going to have to ask you a question on this and people to bear in mind. When you were growing up as a child, what sort of films did your father have you watching when you were growing up?
I think I did just like stuff like Clint Eastwood.
Yeah, they were like when things were starting to change in spaghetti western in the late 60s. In the 30 or 40 years before that, you looked at how did Hollywood portray the Indians? Can you remember?
I can't remember, to be honest, because I didn't really like watching it.
I
used to try and find something else to do when that was on.
Well, my dad fortunately loved watching westerns, and he still does now. And they were very, very racial stereotypes, basically. And you've had very, very few chances where you used to get the Indians surrounding the wagon train, stacking white men for no reason. And this book, when it came out in 1970, it was very, very controversial. Because basically what it's done is, and this is what is particularly interesting about this book is, because it was the first time in a book that was told from the native Indian perspective. And it is an incredibly sad story of man's inhumanity to man. And it touches on how the Indians are systematically slaughtered, starved, and displaced. And it showed unbelievable cruelty from European settlers who managed very quickly to convince many people that the Native Americans needed to be eradicated. It's a terrible, terrible story. And what the book here, Amanda, is it's not just done on one person's perspective. There's 19 different chapters, and each one's different stories about all raising the same point of just how cruel white men were, basically. And it's just unbelievable because it is very uncomfortable reading. It
sounds like the kind of book that if you do it wrong, it could probably be quite offend a lot of people. So would you say it was done in the right way?
Yeah, because you can tell there's a big biography at the end of it with lists all the sources, and the sources come from all kinds of sources on it. And it's not a book you can read for leisure or as a substitute for spaghetti western. But it's not, because it shows you really how bad Americans have been, basically. And it was just awful, because it's one that I've read somewhere that should be studied in history, this book, really. Thought perhaps even more the Industrial Revolution, because it was because what they did was it showed, and this is, I get critical of Americans now, I don't really want to do this because it's not my place, but you look in what's going on in America at the moment where they're going about the racial trouble. This book, you think really, was over 150 years before, and it showed the exact same problems they've got now, because if the white man had done this properly at the time, the Indians, fair enough, they could have been moved around, but there was a lot of corruption. And the army just kept running into villages and slaughtering people. And I'm not just talking about killing them. They were raping them and murdering them, butchering women and children. So that's why it's just an uncomfortable book to read, but I think it's one that's worthy more than anything else.
I suppose if it happened, then people need to know about it, don't they?
Yeah. That's what I thought. That's what the book's like, basically. And it was I think it caused an unholy stink when Dee Brown released it in 1970, because it hadn't. You think really, back in 1970, Mandra, neither of us been born. We didn't have the internet.
No.
And the way people can extract knowledge was nowhere near what was known as it is now.
Yeah.
So this sort of topic you think is out in 1970 would have been, it caused a whole stink. That's for sure of it. So it's, and you think, because they're still moving people back into their original lands that are still Indians this day, and it's just been terrible they've been treated in America.
So was there anything bad about the book?
Yeah, well, you could argue here, because of the texture and the story itself, 19 different stories might have been too much, as it does become repetitive, you could argue, all of which show the same problem. What do you think? If you put in 19 on it, the book was over 400 pages.
I suppose if you only stick to 2 or 3, though, then people could say, oh, well, it was only like a minority type of thing, and it didn't happen to many people. If you've got 19 stories and it's had a dispute, it's more representative of what's happened.
No, it's looked at either way, really. But it's a fascinating book. It's not an easy book to read. I'm telling everybody that now before we even start on this. It wasn't. I found it quite upsetting in places where some of the stories were going around. And I think as well, it's dated a little bit, the book as well, in the style, because the other book I'm going to talk about in a bit, that was wrote more engagingly. This one was almost like done, you tried to stick to the facts more, and in places I found it a bit disconnected from it. But again, it didn't take away from the power of the book at all.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
So is there anything?
No? Oh, sorry, no.
Is there anything else you've got to say about it?
No, I'm depressed after reading that book.
We'll cheer you up with chocolate afterwards.
I don't need it right after that. No, I have nothing else to say, don't you?
So what is the mark out of 10 that you're going to give it?
What do you reckon I'm going to give it?
I think 8.
I give it 9. A 9, Jonathan. I was a bit disconnected by the prose in places of it, but I think it's dated. Yeah. So you think really it's over 50 years old, the book. It has dated a bit, but the power's still there, so it's well worth time checking it out. So 9 out of 10.
Okay then, so it's a recommendation. Go read it.
Yeah, be depressed, right? Don't expect it. Yeah. Don't expect to polish it off in a couple of days, because you won't. It's one that you've got to read very slowly to get the power on it. Okay.
It sounds like it's important to read, though.
Yes, worthy. Very, very worthy. An excellent book. Okay, that's the end of part 3. Amanda, are you going to cheer us up with part 4?
I'll try.
Any hints?
You might be a bit fractured.
I don't know what you're talking about here, so we'll see. So. Watch your space. We shall be back in 2 minutes. Say bye, Amanda.
Bye.
Reading in bed.
And
this is Amanda Steele.
Part 4 of episode 35 of Reading in Bed. over to Amanda now for her second book of the month. What are you gracing us with this time, Amanda?
It's a book called Fractured, and it's by Dani Atkins.
Okay, do you want to give us a blurb?
Yeah. Rachel's life is perfect. A handsome boyfriend, great friends, and the prospect of starting at university in a few weeks means she's never been happier. But in a single heartbeat, her world falls apart forever. 5 years later, Rachel is still struggling to come to terms with the tragedy that changed everything. Returning to her hometown for the first time in years, she finds herself consumed by thoughts of the life that could have been. But when a sudden fall lands her in hospital, Rachel awakes to discover that the life she had dreamed about might just be real after all. Unable to trust her own memories, Rachel begins to be drawn further into this new world, where the man she lost is alive and well, but where she is engaged to be married to someone else. Fractured is a heartwarming story of love and second chances, which will leave you wondering whether two very different storylines can ever lead to the same happy ending.
Okay. How did you find out about this book then?
I think I might have been emailed. I know I get a lot of recommendations from Amazon, and I think it was an email and it was 99p. I mean, normally they're recommending I read my own books, but this was somebody else's book, so I thought, yeah, I'll read that.
What you like, aren't you? So, well, that sounds good to me. No, so there's an email. Was it a book you've had for a while, this one, was it? Or was it fairly new to you, this one?
I'd never heard of the book before. I just thought that sounds good.
I meant, sorry, have you had the book on your Kindle for a while? Or has it been when you got very recent?
Not too long, actually. Only a couple of months, which is not very long for me because I've had books on there for years.
Yeah, so cool. Okay, so what's the strength of this book then?
So I like the sort of sliding doors type thing to it.
Yeah, I got that. I thought that's straight away that it looks like a sliding door. So what was it done like? Chapter in one world, chapter in another viewpoint, was it?
No, she starts off at university, and they're having a meal before they all go off to go the different ways and stuff like that. And then there's like a car that crashes through the window and ends up killing one of them. And then it skips to 5 years later where her life's different and she's upset about losing her close friend. And then she has a fall and wakes up and her life's completely different.
Right.
So for a while, she's kind of running around saying, no, this isn't real. And then trying to prove to people I live at this place, and then turns up at this place and she doesn't live there.
Right, yeah. I suppose you get your meaning, like there's often two ways you've done it. You could even done it like chapter in each world, couldn't you? But it's almost like, is it the implication? And obviously, like you were in a mystery with her saying, was everything that she thought she lived at, was it all an illusion, basically, weren't you? So,
yeah. So it felt a bit like a cross between Sliding Doors and It's a Wonderful Life in some ways.
I can say that, yeah. Cool. Okay, is there anything else you want to talk about as strengths?
Not so much strengths, but just things that I thought were a bit strange. Like the fact that if her life was so bad before and then she wakes up and the effort she puts into trying to convince people that old life is a real life and this isn't. I think you'd be more likely just to accept it, wouldn't you? Or think, well, this is much better. Let's have this life instead.
Yeah, it seems a bit
unorthodox. Why would you want to go back to that life if it was crap?
Yeah, it seemed that's an unorthodoxness to the book, definitely. So, what were the backing characters like then? Because I think that's one that's a crunch point in this sort of book.
You've got a best friend, but she just seems to be there to sort of back her up and don't really have much of like any character outside of her. And then there's the boyfriend, and the thing that annoyed me is obviously her other love interest is the guy that died in a so-called real world. So now he's alive in this new world she wakes up as, and over time she gets together with him, and they just wrote into the thing and made the guy she's with into a cheater as kind of like a way out for her. Like, oh, well, he's a jerk anyway. So now she's moving on to this other guy, but he didn't deserve her anyway. So rather than just making it so, okay, well, she's with this guy, but he's the wrong guy. They just had to kind of make him into the bad guy to make her look better for leaving him for the other guy.
Yeah. It sounds a bit of cheerful, really. Is that a good word for it, Amanda?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Now, I'm guessing we're talking about weaknesses, aren't we, now then? Or do you want to formally move into weaknesses?
Yeah, I guess we're on weaknesses now.
Okay. Is there anything else you wish to say?
I think I've really covered it.
You sound like you've covered a lot of ground there about doing our set weaknesses and strengths bit here. That's why. So
Yeah.
You just jumped up from one wall to another.
Yeah, the strengths just quickly sort of melted into the weaknesses.
Yeah, it's one of those ones. I think it is. I think it sounded like it was just quite a frustrating book. You just want to get the Amanda, was it?
It was good in parts, but I just think you can't take it too seriously, and it just, I suppose, it's a good way to pass a bit of time, but it's not going to win any awards or anything like that.
Yeah, so I think. Tell us if you disagree with this. But it feels like the first book I read, I called that a pot boiler. Would you call yours like a pot boiler, just like a bit of something nice to read rather than gripping or groundbreaking?
Yeah, I suppose people read it who sort of regret things and wish that they'd gone a different way. And then it's just, you can think, oh yeah, well, maybe I'll wake up in this new world and everything will be perfect.
Yeah, so I'm like, was it quite a long book then, was it? Because I think you had it in Kindle, didn't you? So
I think it was a few hundred pages, I can't remember now.
Yeah.
But the ending, I'm not going to say what happens, but it could be interpreted in a couple of ways. I know the way I interpreted it, but I'm not going to give anything away.
Okay, without giving anything away then, did you think it was a good strong ending in the book?
It could be somewhere, so it could be a bit of a cop-out. I can see both points, really.
Well, did you look at it as strong or weak? I nailed it down, right? My investigative journalism.
I would say it's probably an ending that I've seen in quite a few books before, so it wasn't particularly surprising.
Yeah, we'll leave it at that then, okay? With that then, guys and girls. Okay, we're on to the marking time now, Amanda.
I'm going to give it 6.5, so it's not quite a recommendation.
Ooh, God, you've been ruthless this month, aren't you?
Yeah.
People sometimes say, or you say, Amanda, I'm the one that rips books to pieces. And I've been really nice so far. I've given 2 recommendations across. You haven't, right? No. Let me just ask you a quick question then. What stopped it from coming to 7 then? Was there anything specific?
I just felt like the author sort of moulded the characters just to suit the main character.
Yeah, so you mean like the character development structure wasn't very good then, basically, yeah.
Yeah, it's like if you took the main character away, there'd just be nobody without her.
Yeah.
Because they didn't really have personalities of their own.
Oh, yeah, so it becomes like the cardboard cutouts or dominoes, don't they? Yeah. I get it again out straight away, so yeah. Okay. Okay, that's the end of part 4. Who's next, Amanda?
You're next.
You're next. Oh, that is it today, is it? Because we're at Halloween today. Yes, so you're next. Well,
yeah.
How should I give people a hint this time, Amanda, do you reckon? I told you about the next book I'm going to do, haven't I?
I can't remember.
We're going back in time again now. We're going back to Hollywood. We're doing a study of the filmmaker next. So, hang on. See you all in a minute. Say bye, Amanda.
Reading in bed.
Reading in bed with me, Amanda Steele, and...
Yeah. Okay. On to my 3rd book. Right, okay. This has got... I do apologise for the blurb this one. It's quite a long blurb, this one. But it was a big book, so I suppose it's fair enough, isn't it? Okay. The book is by a lady called Karina Longworth. And the title's the longest title we're going to have this month as well. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Seduction, Sex, Lies and Stardom in Howard Hughes' Hollywood. Okay?
Okay.
Blurb. In this riveting popular history, the creator of You Must Remember This probes the inner workings of Hollywood's glamorous golden age through the stories of some of the dozens of actresses pursued by Howard Hughes which revealed how the millionaire mogul's obsessions with sex, power, and publicity trapped, abused, or benefited women who dreamt of screen stardom. In recent months, the media has reported on scores of entertainment figures who have used their power and money in Hollywood to sexually harass and coerce the most talented women in cinema and television. But as Karina Longworth reminds us, long before the Harvey Weinsteins, there was Howard Hughes, the Texas millionaire pilot and filmmaker whose reputation as a cinema provocateur was mapped on by Atkins as a prolific womanizer. His supposed conquest between the first divorce in the late 1920s and his marriage to actress Jean Peters in 1957 included many of Hollywood's most famous actresses, including Billy Duff, Katharine Hepburn, Ava Gardner, and Lana Turner. From promoting bombshells like Jean Harlow and Jane Russell to his contentious battles of his censors, Hughes, perhaps more than any other filmmaker of his era, commercialized male desire as the objectivity of sexualized women. But yet there was also women pulled into Hughes' grasp and never made it to the screen, sometimes virtually imprisoned by an increasingly paranoid and disturbed Hughes, who retained multitudes of private investigators, security personnel, and informers to make sure these actresses would not escape his clutches. Vivid, perceptive, timely, and ridiculously entertaining, The Seduction is a landmark work that examines women's sex and male power in Hollywood during its golden age, a legacy that endures nearly a century later.
Okay. So, do you want to start with the good points?
Yeah. First of all, with this, anyone's wondering what you must remember this is. It's a fantastic podcast, the best podcast going in the market, by Karina Longworth, who talks about the first century of Hollywood. I've played you some of those episodes of Andrew, haven't I?
You sent me the one about Marilyn Monroe a while back, and I quite enjoyed that.
Yeah, that's an indication of what this book's about, really. It touches on like what the sexuality of how women were sexualized in the first century of Hollywood. It took her something like about a year to write this book, it did. And she had already covered Howard Hughes and most of the actresses in this book itself over time. And it shows you, Amanda, with this book, how much detail she went into this. There was over 40 pages of a big graph at the end of it, listing all the books she'd researched through. And also, this is what's really astonishing. She'd actually got access to the Howard Hughes archive in Texas. And she went through 75,000 documents.
Well, so she was busy then.
Yeah, it took her a year apparently to write this, and it's a 500-page book. So you can see what I mean with that. It's like straight away, can't you? So just the level of detail in this book is phenomenal. That's why it's Seduce itself, anyway, is the book, obviously, like I said before. It tells the story of Howard Hughes in Hollywood and stories of many of the women he was involved in. And Longworth's attempt to get the detail here, the truth is admirable and sincere. The book wanders around a lot, but that's on purpose, because the book is not just about Howard Hughes. It's touching on a lot of it is where the people his lives he impacted on and how he manipulated people. It's really quite shocking, some of it, because as he got older, I think he had the implication is, Amanda, he had a breakdown of some sort or some sort of mental health trouble. And what he did was he had literally at one point, when he was in his studio, RKO Studios, he had dozens of women basically around him, some of which never even met him. And what he'd have various ones of them placed in apartments. And what he would then do is he'd be having spies and all kinds of people keeping an eye on them. While like saying like he'll come to see them and meet them and discuss films the next couple of days, and they go on for months, some cases years, with no sense of work getting done. But then what he did, you want to hear the funniest, shocking story about this? He used to have most of them took down to a certain restaurant by drivers, and the drivers would have to take him in and leave him in and go and sit outside. And he would really have to be sat there making his mind who he wants to work with and all these women. But most of them wasn't even there. But what he used to have to do was the drivers went down to pick the women up. The women would start twigging. This man took me here last week. There's another one this week. But they weren't allowed, the drivers allowed to talk to the other girls they drove previously. So like there was a real degree of control of the characters. It's quite disturbing, really.
Yeah, it sounds a bit strange.
Yeah, it was really. And it just, I think he was just a strange man, to be honest with you. Really, really strange man. And he had an ongoing battle with the censors. And there were several of his films, one called The Outlaw, with Jane Russell in, which it took him 5 years for it got released. And what he used to do was the way that the censors hated him, because Jane Russell, an actress at the time, was quite, should we say, a well-endowed woman. Is that the best way to put it to you?
Yeah.
And it would go along and say, the poster of her, where he's on stood there posing with no bra on, not showing it and showing her breasts. But then at the top beneath it, something along the lines of, here are 2 reasons why Hollywood don't want you to watch his film as part of the poster title.
Yeah.
It was very, very strange, man. But the book's really good. The book's really, really engaging. Unlike, obviously, as I said before, the previous book with Dee Brown, this is quite, it jumps all over the page, really quite, very well engaged. And you can see how she actually wrote the book. The book meant a lot to her, and she's really interested in it. So, and there's a lot of stories that told me. Really interesting books.
So was there any more good points before you move on to any bad points then?
Yes, one quick thing on this. I should make a point on this as well. If you enjoy reading the book, I recommend you get it straight away. But there was a mini-series on, you must remember this, which she did on straight after the book came out, which filled in all the gaps of the stories of how he uses women. And that was, that was really engaging. So it's interesting how Hughes, he had a type. You look at him, and I'm not knowing more details about it, but he seemed like he was just a pure control freak. It was terrifying, really. And you think really with the Harvey Weinstein thing that's gone on. So I'm sure you remember who he is, Amanda, don't you?
Yeah, yeah.
This is set 18, 90 years for him. It showed you what control freaks had back in Hollywood then, and it's like to be Bury My Heart and Wounded Knee. It shows you really how much corruption there is in America in some ways.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to go to weaknesses for you?
Yeah.
Right. There's only one thing in this really, because it's there was a criticism online about this where a couple of people bought this book expecting to get a real biography of Howard Hughes. This is not that book, and it's their fault that they misread that. I think if you knew what you're stepping into, it's a book about as much about Howard Hughes, a book about landscape around him and the way society was. It's quite interesting for that reason. I think again it's possibly a bit long, but again I read it really quickly. I was engrossed in it like anything. I respect her for doing it. So
okay, so do you want to give it a mark out of 10?
What do you reckon I'm going to give this out of 10?
It's going to be quite high. I reckon an 8 or 9.
I'm going to give it a 10.
Ooh,
Hey,
we've got a 10.
We've got a 10. Come my book of the year, this one, I reckon. Yeah. Well, which we will talk about later. So that's everyone on that.
Yeah. So we've got one more to go after this.
One more book. You're next, Amanda.
I am next.
Yeah. What hints are you going to give us?
Pencils.
Where are you going to stick them? Not in your eyes, are you?
Oh God, no! I don't like things where stuff gets stuck in people's eyes.
Well, we're doing all the horror anthologies, aren't we? So what's the book about? Somebody sticking pencils in their eyes? Or did the book make you want to stick your pencils in your eyes?
I guess you'll see.
I come round, you'll find out in a minute. Say bye, Amanda.
Reading and bed.
Episode 35 with Andy M.
And Amanda Steele.
Right, as we illuminated in part 5, Amanda's got a book now for us where I think she's been sticking pencils in her eyes. Or is that what the book's about, Amanda, isn't it?
It involves the use of pencils.
Oh, right, okay. Do you want to elaborate more then?
It's called How to Draw Cool Stuff, the 5-minute workbook by Catherine Holmes.
Cool. Now, what made you want to get this book, Amanda?
I think it might have been 3 or 99 pence. I can't remember which one. And I thought, yeah, it seems like a good thing to try.
Yeah, when I heard you got this book, I was a bit surprised at it. Like, I didn't think it was necessarily you actually, really, Tarsha. But
no, my hand drawing is rubbish. As you know, I do like copyright free images and alter them, and then recently I've started doing photography and altering my own images online. But that's completely different to actually get a piece of paper and a pencil and coloured pencils and actually start to draw something on the paper.
Yeah, you've literally done this in the past couple of weeks, haven't you? Really? So
yeah.
Was it something that you've always been interested in for quite a while now, then, of yours, or was it just something you just wanted to give it a go at?
I wish I could draw better, and I thought, well, maybe the book will help me.
Sorry, guys and girls, something like that. My phone's going mad.
Back in track.
Sorry about that. Right, I know. So tell us about the structure of the book then. What they did, what they made you do them.
So they have like the item you're supposed to draw. They tell you what it's going to be, and then they'll say like, draw these lines. So they'll tell you like how many lines to draw, how long and stuff, and where to draw them. So that's like the basic outline of the picture. And then they'll get you to join them, maybe with curves or whatever, and then start like shading in different bits of it. And then they might say like, okay, now we're about this bit, like the outline bit. So it's just like the actual picture bit that stays, and not all the lines and stuff that wouldn't normally be in it if you was drawing that picture. So then you're left with the image. So I think I've shown you some, haven't I? And
yeah.
I did have some. I had some that were reasonably okay. I probably wouldn't submit them to an art gallery or anything. But
No.
there was one I did of a woman knelt down, and it's like, I thought that was okay. That's at least 10-year-old level.
Like I say, I think as adults, like I said, it's worth people noting that you get older. You always say, don't you, human brain stuff. You're old, from old, you can't learn new skills as well. But I've told Amanda this off mic already. I'm a firm believer, because like anyone know me and you would know we don't do writing, do we?
No. I've had some that were particularly bad, like the poor dinosaur that I tried to draw the other day. He looks like someone's done him harm. And the poor octopus, the octopus just looks like someone's hacked one of his legs off.
Oh dear.
So I drew the legs too far apart, so there's just a big gap.
But it's worth people knowing with this, obviously, like, you've not been spending hours on this every day, Amanda, have you?
I've been doing between 20 and 30 minutes a day, and I'll just do either a couple of the pictures in the book, or I'll just concentrate on like trying to draw one of them and maybe just have 2 attempts or something like that.
Yeah. Now, is it quite a long book, this one, is it?
It's a few hundred pages on the Kindle. And it's not the kind of thing, it's not the kind of book you ever finish, really, because obviously you'll want to practice, so you'll go back and you'll keep redoing it and trying to get better. Yeah. Unless you get to the point where you've done 20 attempts and you just realise that you're a bit rubbish and you're just not going to do it.
How have you found the exercise so far in the book?
I've had some where I thought that's not too bad, and then I've had others that I thought, oh my God, is that a 3-year-old could draw better than that?
But has it made you want to carry on with them? That's the crunch of the book.
I'll carry on with it, and what I'm going to do sometime in the next few weeks, I'm probably going to do a blog post with a review on it, and I'll show some of the better ones, which still aren't that fantastic, and then I'll show some of the really bad ones to give people a laugh, if nothing else.
Yeah. Have you found it then? I'm trying to put the best way to put it to you. Obviously, I know you do like digital art, don't you? You do podcasting as well, and you've even done music before now, haven't you? So, as well as writing. Have you found this the most difficult creative art you've ever tried so far?
It is really difficult. You see people posting pictures of stuff that they've drawn, and you just think, I can never draw like that. And then I look at my attempts, and even the better ones, it's like, it's just not up to that standard.
But then you look at some of these people that are really good artists. When do you hear about them all being very good writers? It's not always the case, is it?
No.
There's some that can do both, but you find that people use a very good masterful medium. You're the sort of person, and I'm like this as well, very different level, where we're never happy standing still. And that's the point behind this thing that you're trying to raise, Amanda, aren't you? Like, you shouldn't be afraid to not try and do something you might struggle with as a child.
No, so if you're publishing as well and you don't have money to like hire an artist, then you need to create your own artwork. So I'm not saying I'm going to start using my handwritten drawings for books unless it's a children's book or something like that. But even then, it's like I've done the digital art, so that's how I do my book covers. And I think that's the way that you've got to learn to do all the aspects of it if you haven't got the money to hire someone. Because you can't just put any old rubbish out there.
Some people do, but that's not, we're not going to name names.
Yeah, we've seen some awful book covers, and we've just thought, what are you thinking?
Yeah, and then like we've seen it before. And this is a good point people bear in mind. This, well, like if you ever go on Facebook, there's plenty of forums out there where people are like amateur-based writers, and they're going and putting terrible covers on. I wonder why no one's buying the book.
I've seen one on one of these forums that we run where someone's posted what could have been a picture of their back garden, and it wasn't a particularly nice back garden. I think they've just gone out, stood in the garden, taken a picture and put like a sort of grey-brown filter type thing on it that you could do on like the basic photo package where you could add a filter to it, and then just added like a horrible font for the title over it.
Yeah.
And just use that as the cover, and they consider that to be digital art, and it's really not.
It just sums it up with people sometimes. Like if you put a complete lack of thought into something, what you get back is what you deserve. Nothing. And like your case, man, you're trying to. This is baby steps for you. It's sort of, I mean, I've not read this book, and I wouldn't fancy it and go with it. But respect you, and this, everyone's wondering. Amanda's taking baby steps trying to learn new stuff she struggled with as a child, and I think you've got a lot out of this book so far, haven't you? What I've seen.
There's some I'm more pleased with than others, but I'll stick with it, see where it goes. I might never use the images for anything else, but it's something that I've tried, and we're in lockdown again, so it's something to do.
Oh, completely. Have you? What? It's very hard when you do this sort of book to talk about the strengths and weaknesses. Has there been anything about the book itself you've not particularly found inspiring so far?
No, I think the way the author's done it, it teaches you the most simple way to do it. The fact that my images don't look anything like that is more about me than the author.
Yeah, no, understandable. So I said I can't mark it, so I've not read it. But I've enjoyed what Amanda's been doing. It's been good fun learning. So Amanda, what marks should I give this book?
I'm going to give it a 9.5 out of 10.
No, that's excellent. It's a good mark, that. So it's certainly second strongest book of the month then, Amanda, isn't it? 9.5 out of 10.
Yeah, and I believe there's a series of these as well. I think this is book 5, so there's at least 5 books in this series.
Wow. Oh, cool. You have to tell us what the rest of the books are like, and Amanda, if you get onto that stage. So cool. Okay. That's it, guys, isn't it, Amanda?
Yeah, it's over.
It's over. Thank you for your patience today. I know when we do 6 books, it goes on for a while, so hey ho. Now, next, and then there's the next issue. The next podcast is our December special. And what are we doing in December, Amanda?
Well, I have one book about donuts that I'm going to review.
I've got the book, and I don't know if I'm going to read it and review it yet, so I might do something else. We'll see. But what do we normally do in December, Amanda?
We do our best of, and we also do lots of Christmassy type stuff.
Yeah.
Because even if Christmas is cancelled, we're going to have a Christmas episode, aren't we?
We're going to rave. So.
Rave.
So that's it, guys. It goes. Anyway, I said, spoilers to follow. Don't forget what we said before. We've got a couple of live events coming up. Both got publications out or on the way.
Yeah, I'll put the links in the write-up for the events, but it probably won't be on Bandcamp, will it? Because you can't put links on there. But everywhere else it will be.
No, we'll let you. But yeah, so check everywhere else, guys, on the pod and all the networks for the links to the forthcoming readings. But otherwise, stay safe and stay over. Say bye, Amanda.
Bye, I'm waving even though you can't see me.
You're next. Oh, sorry. Goodbye.
Reading and bet.
Have you ever thought about what Santa Claus would be like as a zombie? Or maybe you've wondered how he would cope with climate change, Brexit, or any number of issues facing the UK and beyond. Probably not, but if you're now wondering, You can buy The 12 Deaths of Father Christmas by Amanda Steele. It's a collection of flash fiction stories with accompanying images in which Santa dies in different ways. There's a political slant to many of the pieces and added sarcasm. This is not for children.
Ho, 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 ho. Merry Christmas!
Read in bed. Read in bed.